If you were given $50,000 so you could chase your dream, what dream would you chase? I have a friend who lives in a hilly area, and while her foundation is down in the bedrock, her plumbing is obviously not. The hill shifted and her plumbing cracked and messed up their whole basement. Because of where their house is located, they had to get a whole team of people involved, including a geologist, and it cost well into $200–250K, which is just bananas to me. I feel like I will never own a house if that's the kind of stuff that can pop up. Edit. Quite a lot of home experts on Reddit today. Yes, they had insurance. No, it didn't cover most of it. Yes, they had an inspection, but the inspector couldn't predict that 10 years later the hill would shift. The house property was worth $750K at the time. It's appreciated even with the issues at hand. Home ownership is just ass sometimes, my dudes. I'd buy a dirt farm and race bikes and things like that. You can just buy shitty land in East Texas and let people come ride their bikes and ATVs for a fee. Get yourself a backhoe, build some berms. It can be as profitable as any farm on the same amount of land all day and twice on Sunday. This is my dream. If I ever win the lottery, I'm going to buy 500 acres and make a dirt bike paradise. It would be cool to try to build a track nice enough to host the Pro Nationals and GNCCs every year. What about liability insurance? I'd expect that you'd want to incorporate, likely an LLC, to prevent your personal finances from being subjected to a potential lawsuit. Not a smarty type business guy at all. I can't even spell business without depending on spell check. I just know some people with tales of dreams lost due to not thinking of that stuff. Some states, like Kentucky, absolve owners of recreational land from liability, but only if they don't charge for access, which kind of breaks Ops plan. As long as you aren't grossly or intentionally negligent, like building booby traps, you don't have any duty of care for people who are on your land, and you don't assume liability for any injuries. Personally, as a rock climber and mountain biker, I think these are fantastic laws. Say you are an oil or timber company and you own thousands of acres of land for the resource value ... But say there are also some nice cliffs on the property. If a group of climbers approaches you and asks if they can come climb on your land while you're not using it ... The default answer from any company with a lawyer is probably going to be hell no. Nobody wants the liability of someone on their land doing a potentially dangerous activity ... But if you have a state recreation law, you might be like, sure, you can use it, we're not going to log it for 15 years. Right when the pandemic hit, I moved in with my parents to go back to school. Well, obviously I didn't go back yet because COVID. Holy shit, the last year of my life totally changed my perspective. Taking a deep breath and relaxing for a while did my mind untold good. Yeah, for me, it was kind of the opposite. I had extra people move into my house, so things have only gotten more complicated and my usual breaks are pretty well gone. I need some of that good R&R lol. I had a Bank of America account that I overdrafted by $2, got hit with a $34 fee or some shit, deposited the $2 I overdrafted into the account, leaving just the negative balance from the fee. Stopped using the account completely and they closed me out. Fuck that shit. I deposited a check once, this is back on like 98, to my BOA account on the same day that 4 withdrawals were supposed to happen. I went to the bank right when they opened and deposited it. Instead of processing the check into my account first then doing the withdrawals, they decided to start with the withdrawals first, starting with the largest one that overdrafted me. They then did the other 3 withdrawals, each one was between $5 and $10, each one overdrafting me further and a $35 fee for each one, for a total of 4 overdrafts and $130 on fees. Then they deposited my check, which still left me in the negative. I don't bank with bull anymore. $50,000 isn't a lot to have, but it's a lot to owe. Can't buy a house with it. It's not enough for retirement, could buy a decent car with it. Don't get me wrong, I'd be ecstatic if I had an extra $50K, but I don't think it would be life-altering. It's not as big as the millions that other posts have offered. But that's what makes it more realistic and thought-provoking. Having the $50K in the bank will just be for spending money and interest. My point was more that I'd save the money instead of spending it recklessly. We were able to put down 3%, so like $4,500, on our home. I live in a cheaper area but it's doable. Not that $4,500 isn't a chunk of change, but it's far easier to come up with than $50,000. Edit: we bought our house for $170,000 in a small town near a bigger city in a poor state. It's definitely not the norm for most home buyers. I was a first-time home buyer, and while I knew we got lucky, I didn't realize how unusual our experience was. My bad. Where do y'all live that housing is so affordable? I was based in Vancouver, Canada, and am still depressed I may never afford a house there, so am looking to move away to a more realistic place. The Canadian real estate market is mad. This so much. $50K is a 20% down payment on a $250K house, which would get me a nice house. It'd be nice to not have PMI or a large mortgage payment and be able to use my money for things I really enjoy after paying my reasonable monthly mortgage. PMI isn't as terrible as everyone on the personal finance sub makes it seem. We did 10% down. PMI is $58 a month. I'd rather have all that liquid cash for emergencies or investment than save $58 a month for 5 years. That's not enough to really quit your job and chase any dream. Not sure if OP is from a country with a lower cull than the US or if they're a teen who has no idea how fast $50,000 goes. Edit: it's possible OP chose this amount knowing it was limited. If they did, it'd be more clear if they said if you were only given, so you couldn't afford that extravagant of a dream. If that's the case, then disregard my comment. This money works for some dreams but really limits a lot, at least in higher cost of living countries, and time that can be devoted to it. Yes, $50,000 isn't nothing, but this thread is about money for a chase your dream fantasy, not money to survive on living in an affordable area in your current city for a couple of years. There are some countries where this money goes a long way, and I agree that definitely works as an answer to the OP. But most of this site's audience are based in the US and other Anglophone countries with similarly high cost of living. Honestly, I'd just pay down student debt. My dream at this point is to be able to use most of my income to enjoy my life. I make plenty of money to live the comfortable life that I want, but then student loan bills hit and it's a different story. Yup, went to college for a degree that gives me a lucrative career. I make very good money just starting out. Graduated last month, but as soon as my student loan bills start hitting in 6 months, then it's as if I'm not making a lot. And the only way I could have made this type of money in the field I really enjoy was to go to school. The only way for me to go to school was to take out private loans. Moral of the story is that college is too damn expensive. My father was a blue-collar worker, worked a labor job in a steel mill all his life. Still is working, and he's damn near 70. I'm an engineer. Busted my ass in college so I could get here and work more of a white-collar job, although I'm out of the job site a lot. A lot of money to me for income is in the six-figure range, since my family was never able to obtain that, and I'm pretty close to that range, just not there yet cause I'm an entry-level engineer. As for college, fuck. It's all expensive. Community colleges are cheaper, but their degrees aren't nearly as respected as major universities. Most CCs won't offer engineering or some sciences. Honestly, I spent $20,000 tuition a year on school. That doesn't include books, apartment rent, food, etc. My parents made too much money for the government to deem me deserving of financial aid. But my parents made way too little money to actually pay for my education. They were only able to co-sign for me, and that's it. For what it's worth, I was in more or less your same position 10 years back when I started my career. $70,000 salary, $60,000 debt. I made the personal choice to prioritize paying that debt over all else. Bonuses, tax refunds, all extra cash went of the loans. I managed to pay them off in full after about 4 years, and have spent the last 6 without debt. As my salary grew, I still work with a few folks from my start class, and while we all make 3x our starting income, most of them still have monthly loan payments and have spent thousands more on the interest. Unsolicited financial advice is the worst, so all I'll say is the payments do suck up front. It's a broken system, to be sure. Even with all that being true, it sounds like you've put yourself in an excellent position and will be free of them soonish. What if you're a dipshit like me who racked up $200,000 in student loans and are on an income-based repayment plan, literally just lighting $250 on fire every month? Even if I massively prioritized paying down the debt, it would hardly matter. I think I'm better off just having the lowest payment possible forever. You're not a dipshit for investing in your education. We simply live in a system where the cost of doing so is completely out of whack. I'm a tech nerd, not a finance nerd. But it sounds like you structured repayment in the most reasonable way possible, even if that reasonable option is completely unreasonable. I couldn't agree more. I always find it crazy when they mention they still have loans left. The best I can assume is that they've stuck to the minimum payments and prioritized other uses of their cash. Whether it be a more expensive apartment they all still rent, I'm the only homeowner in the bunch, or a more extravagant trip. Another buddy, without loans, just told me that the family timeshare he had free use of was not up to snuff for his significant other, and they're now spending $1,500 a night on a ritzier vacation rental. Lifestyle creep is very effective at eating up cash, especially when the march from $70,000 to what I make now came about 15% minus 22% at a time. I'm so extremely privileged to be where I am, but I see so many people in the same shoes that somehow still live paycheck to paycheck. Honestly, this is harder to do than you think. I busted my ass and lived on nothing for years so I could use nearly all my income to pay down debt. If I could beg, borrow or steal $1 somewhere in the budget, it went to pay down debt. Then I woke up with no debt years down the road. But also, if I think about enjoying any of my money, I get massive anxiety. End result is that I still live the same way I always did. I just put every dollar I can beg, borrow or steal in savings, or I give it to some charity. I feel guilty if I spend on myself now because that's the behavior I learned while digging out of debt. Stupid thing is I saw my grandparents do the same thing. They were Depression-era people and grew up with absolutely nothing, so they saved every penny. Even after they became well off financially, they still stash ketchup packets from MCD so they don't have to buy ketchup. And my grandmother laments that she wants to grow tomatoes but can't afford tomato steaks. They have being cheap baked into their DNA now. Same here. I started for software but was a lousy student. 4 years in and still was at least 3 more from graduating because of so many failed classes. If I could go back without adding to my already high student loan balance, then I would. Driving semi-OTR is going to take its toll on me. If you started in software and still have interest, let me suggest, if no one has, to look for a job in tech. I started as tech support, moved to design, and am now a project manager. I have big imposter syndrome for not finishing school, but experience and having your name out there can keep you moving forward. I did enjoy the software. I have tried to keep interest in it. But there was a certain part of me that just died during the process of my divorce in 2016. If I were to go back now, I don't know that I would go for software. Network maybe. Honestly, move out from my town and just be able to live for a few months on my own while I find a job I moderately enjoy. I'd save the rest and probably invest it later into making my own business someday. But the priority for me now is to get out of my hometown ASAP. Edit. WTF2K upvotes. I almost didn't reply cause I thought no one would care. Thanks guys. Smile. Speaking from personal experience, you don't need 50K to do that. I moved from my podunk town to a major city with like $1,500 to my name. Found someone looking for a roommate and took the first job I could find to pay the bills while I got settled in. As a musician and a frugal person, you should check out local buy, sell pages on Facebook or the Facebook Marketplace. Craigslist, etc., and you can get really good deals. I bought my $400 guitar for $40 bucks. Not only that, a $50 100 instrument may not sound as good, but it will at least get you in the door for learning. If you decide you have no interest in learning the instrument you bought, you're only out $50 100 instead of $300 400. Second thing, if you go to a music shop, family owned is better. You can ask them if they have any used instruments which will be cheaper for you. They would also most likely be willing to accept a lower price for any instruments that have cosmetic damages. I got $50 taken off my ukulele for some dings it got going through transit to the shop. I've always been a sucker for infinite games that have a lot of depth to gameplay. It would be an infinite randomly generated dungeon crawler with a RuneScape-style crafting skill system in the overworld. There would be very strategic gacha systems that aren't linked to any type of payment. You dungeon crawl, collect loot, come back to base to process your rewards and repeat. Ideally it would have Warcraft 3's graphics but sharper. If RuneScape, Diablo 2, Path of Exile, and Xenoblade 2 were all mixed together. There's a custom server on Neverwinter Nights, the 2001 RPG, not the MMO, that is hardcore RP, has a lot of depth to its magic and crafting systems. Most of the server's lore and history is built by or from player involvement. Lots of fun. Edit, the server is irrelevant for anyone wondering. It is very good, takes some getting used to but will worth it. Agreed. I looked at his description and that sounds like enough work for 5 people for 2 years. Let's say that they pay themselves $60K, so $600K? I'm working solo part-time on a game that is about 1/2 the depth of that, and I've been working on it for 4 years now and feel the scope is too big. However, it's just for fun and I'm not trying to make money off it. Maybe art. Modeling isn't my thing, but I feel that I could easily spend another year just doing art without touching the gameplay at all and I still wouldn't be done. Edit, typo. I'm not sure what country you're in, but a PPL in the UK and US costs around £8,000 10,000, which is maybe a bit more accessible than $50,000. There are ways to get under £10,000. For example, some places have deals where you can bulk buy 5 or 10 lessons at a time and save some cash. Though be wary of schools offering deals like this, as there is risk involved, and as always, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Along the powered fixed-wing route, you could also fly microlights, which is cheaper still. I've had just as much fun flying microlights as I have flying big powered stuff. Despite what anyone may say, gliders are the cheapest fixed wing to fly, and are a stunning way to get around. They're extremely cheap to learn to fly, and you get just as many skills. Your local gliding club will have specific rates, but glider launches are around £5 for a winch, and £30 for a aerotow, plus 30p minute for the glider. That's around £20/£30 an hour, which beats the £100 per hour powered costs. A slightly different route to getting airborne of fixed-wing flight is still a little too expensive is flying paramotors. The FAA, USA, and K, UK, governing bodies over aerospace rules and regs, classifies paramotors under ultralights, and you don't need a license, medical, or anything to fly them. You could in theory just get up and go, although this is not a smart choice. A good training course costs around £2,000, which is definitely easier than $50,000, or even the £10,000 of a PPL, and you could get gear after that when you know you're into it. Plus, flying paramotors, whilst you still have to abide by all the airspace rules and regs, you have loads more freedom to fly around your local areas, or throw it in the car and go on a trip. They're a super cheap and accessible way to fly. Summer is coming up, it could be the perfect time to learn. This is what my wife and I did. We taken rescues of all sorts. Right now we have 1 horse, 1 pony, a fat piggy, 2 rabbits and loads of chickens and ducks. My horse passed away in October and it broke me. Haven't been the same since. I love those animals with all my heart and we don't get any funding. It's all out of our own pocket. It's a ton of work but we love it. We recently took in a purebred German Shepherd too and she is incredible. But you're right, you need a good chunk of change to even start. I hope one day you get to live your dream. If I could help you, I would.